Rabbi, first and foremost, a freilichen like Ba'omer, and a big thank you to Rick and Yafa for sponsoring. Le'iloi Nishmas Eliezer Berb Yitzchak Halevi. So Shama should have an aliyah, and he should continue to get tremendous nachas from his children and grandchildren, and please God, Doris. At Biaskal Tzedek. Tonight is like Ba'omer, which if you didn't count that it's like Ba'omer, you are probably Yotze by saying today is like Ba'omer, the Avid. But Lechatchila, you should still count. Like Ba'omer, it's interesting, is one of those things that people love to love and people love to hate. Right? You see, like there's a lot of things that people get like really pumped about like Ba'omer. And then there's always like the people that like have the blogs and the vlogs and the articles and the histories and the news and the that what it is and what it isn't, and is it real and is it legit, and I'll tell you a secret. I don't care. What do you mean? Really, I don't care. There's something real about like Ba'omer that doesn't require history and accuracy. And that's not because those things are not important. It's because somehow or another, when year after year, since really, if we're honest, the end of the 1800s, from about 1870 and onwards, every year more and more Jews are excited about Lag Ba'omer. The Gemara Pesachim says that if we're not Nevi'im, we're B'nai Nevi'im, and there's something about Klal Yisrael getting pumped about something that has its own legitimacy. And that's not to say that Lag Ba'omer doesn't have legitimacy, of course it does. But the legitimacy of Lag Ba'omer comes from the same place as the legitimacy of the Jewish people. It is, if we're not Nevi'im, we're B'nai Nevi'im. And somehow or another, the Jewish people is excited about this thing called Lag Ba'omer. And sometimes, Rahman is to our detriment, like we saw a few years ago. But the excitement of Lag Ba'omer is something that defies historical accuracy, that defies rationalism and reason. It is squarely in the zone of the thing that doesn't have describability. You can't really put your finger on what Lag Ba'omer is about. And all of the world of Soda Satorah and Pneumius Satorah is in that world of indescribability. We were speaking to some of the Chavra at the afternoon Kola last week. We'll say just I'll regal achas some of those ideas by way of introduction. Practically speaking, it is probably not the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died. It's not. It's probably a typo. In the original Ksavim of Reb Chaim Vital, where it refers to Yom Shemes Rashbi, the day that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died, it's probably a typo. It says Yom Simchas Rashbi, the day of the Simcha of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. What's the day of the Simcha of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai? Maybe it's the day that he was revealing the biggest Soda Satorah, maybe. Rav Hutner has a mahalach, and this is coming from a few places. You'll see this in Sefer that Rav Hillel, it's the Rosh Yeshiva of the Yeshivas HaMekubalim, has a 300-400 page Sefer, Eit Hagal Hazeh. We talks about the history and the mystery of Lag Ba'omer. It's probably the day that Rabbi Akiva gave smicha to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, which is part of the story of what we are talking about. It's hard to put your finger on what's chashuv about today. But somehow or another, in the last 150, 200 years, Klal Yisrael is excited about it. And it tracks with the excitement of the Jewish people returning to Eretz Yisrael. It's probably not well known, but the first settlers of Eretz Yisrael today, in the modern day, were not Zionists from Europe. They started coming in the 80s and 90s. But in 1870, there was a Jew by the name of Rav Shmuel Abu, Mishpachas Abu, who North Africans. Rav Shmuel Abu was tremendously wealthy. He bought up all of the area of Meron and all the area of the north. And he told a whole group of Jews from, like, I think, Tunisia, Algeria, to make aliyah, to settle the north of the country. And he told them, I will give you land to build, to settle on, but I get to dictate your schedule. I'll give it to you. But matana, it's yours. The deal is as follows. Half day, you work the land. You establish the original agricultural settlements in the north. Before Rishon LeZion, before Petach Tikva, the original agricultural settlements in the north were around Tzfat and Meron. 1870. Talking like 30 years before the first Zionist Congress. Like, Chavra were thinking like this. Half day you work the land, and half day you learn Kabbalah. That was the deal. Morning Seder, farmers. Afternoon Seder, Kabbalists. Those were the first settlements. And as Jews started making their way to Eretz Yisrael, those were the first people, Europeans. They came with all the ideas of building a state and statehood and politics and Zionism. And they met people that were doing this already for a generation. And it was all because we have a Masorah. Chazal tell us that Klal Yisrael will come back, that the Sanhedrin will reconstitute from the same place that they left. Oh, shkoach dakta. There were 10 Golios of the Sanhedrin. After the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed, the Sanhedrin moved from Yerushalayim to Yavne, Ten Yavne v'Chachameh, the Gemara in the middle of Gittin. And after that, they moved place to place to place, and you see Takanos across the Gemara. There were Takanos in Yavne and Takanos in Usha. And then they went up north to Tzfas and to Tveria and to Tzipori, to the area around the Kinneret. And from there, we have a Masorah that's where Klal Yisrael will reconstitute. It's fascinating. We were talking about before that this is the first year in a very long time that there's nothing really planned going on in Meron. The Chasam Sofer writes, he says, I'm not a fan of this whole thing of Meron. And the Chasam Sofer was not a small Kabbalist in his own right. If you take a look at any of the Svarim of the Chasam Sofer, certainly Taras Moshe and all of the Drashas Chasam Sofer, he was certainly an accomplished Mekubal. His two primary Rabbeim were Reb Nosson Adler and Reb Pinchas Halevi Horowitz, the Haflah, who was Talmid and Chassid with Maggid Reb Mezrich, meaning Chasam Sofer was not a lightweight in Kabbalah. And he talks about the fact that he's not a fan of Meron, of the whole Aliyah to Meron, because it's a Pegam in Yerushalayim. And he goes so far as to say that the earthquakes that destroyed Tzfat is because Jews settled Tzfat and they forgot about Yerushalayim. And there's a chelik of Geula in the fact that this year, the primary Hilul of Rabbi Shimon Yochai is not in Tzfat, it's in Yerushalayim. I put out on Facebook a little bit earlier today. I found this from a couple of years ago. That I think it was during 1967 where nobody could go up to Meron in that year. Or wherever it was, that they asked Reb Mordechai Eliyahu. They asked Reb Mordechai Eliyahu, what can we do if we can't go to Meron? So he said, they said, where's going to be Rabbi Shimon this year? He said, Rabbi Shimon is on the front lines with the Chayalim. That's where Rabbi Shimon is. Rabbi Shimon is there. He's with the Chayalim. If you want to support Rabbi Shimon, forget Meron, go and find Jews that are being Moshe Nefesh for Klal Yisrael. That's where Rabbi Shimon is. And I want to explain and to try and understand just for a few minutes what that means. That Rabbi Shimon is that world of Meron and is the world of the return of the Jewish people to Eretz Yisrael. And it's the world of Zionism and it's the world of Geula. And it's the world of agricultural rebuilding of Eretz Yisrael and it's the world of the Chayalim. And it's the world of ultimately Yerushalayim Shel Mata and Yerushalayim Shel Mala. There's a terribly difficult piece in an essay, in a speech that Rav Soloveitchik speaks about, where he talks about how it is that our generation has been zoche to geula without teshuvah. Meaning for generations we davened, Hashivenu Avinu L'Sarasacha, bring us back to Torah. And then we daven Gal Yisrael. Baruch Hu redeems the Jewish people. How could it be that we have a shtickle geula without teshuvah? And he addresses the fact that the Satmar Rebbe, the Satmar Rebbe was a tzaddik and a gaon and was wrong. That's okay. Satmar Rebbe said that the whole of Eretz Yisrael and Medina Yisrael is Ma'aseh Satan. The whole thing is all like it's all a test. Rav Soloveitchik said about that it's a very dark philosophy to believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu would do all of these things just like to mess with us. It's like a very disturbing philosophy to believe such a thing. But he said the question's still a good question. How do you have geula without tshuva? And he has a very, very difficult answer. Rav Kook had a different answer. Rav Soloveitchik's answer was terribly challenging. He said, if not for the fact that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Eretz Yisrael after the Holocaust, there'd be nothing left of us. He needed to give it back to us. He needed to give us a little bit of geula as a survival mechanism. Survival. Because without something enormous after the Holocaust, we would have given up. We all would have given up. If not for the fact that Hashem gave that to us, like peeked from behind the curtain, and 3 years after, quite literally the worst thing that happened to the Jewish people in all of Jewish history, Hashem gave us the greatest miracle of 2,500 years. Since before the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. Modern state of Israel is significantly more than the days of Ezra and Nehemiah. We don't yet have a Beis HaMikdash, that's true. But the geula that we've been experiencing for the last 70 years is much more than Ezra and Nehemiah ever experienced. Because for them, the vast majority of the Jewish people were still in Bavel. By us, we've seen 600,000 turn into 8 million. It's a different world. That's a different league. Ezra and Nehemiah never ever saw their Medina not being subservient to the Persian Empire and the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire. Shtickle in the days of the Hashmonaim, then a little bit. And then that all kind of went to hell in a handbasket. What we've seen in our Doris is much more than Ezra and Nehemiah. Said Rav Soloveitchik, if not for that, we would all have just dropped everything. And it's a difficult answer. But the truth behind it, whether you accept that that is the theological, philosophical explanation, the reality is that the nisim v'niflaos that we have been zocher to in our dar are the greatest proofs of the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There is no sociologist, no psychologist, no economist, no military analyst that explains this table right now, that explains how it is that Jews in our generation are zoche to what we're zoche to. How if you decided tonight, Monday night, that you wanted to be in Eretz Yisrael for Shabbos, there's literally nothing stopping you other than what Dan Steele says about your credit card points. And maybe some rockets from Iran, whatever. There's nothing stopping you. There's nothing stopping us. You understand the nace that is? That miracle? Nissim v'niflos. And it came not because of the depths of hell, but it came out of the depths of hell. Somehow or another. And Rabbi Shimon says at the beginning of the Zohar HaKadosh, with this sefer, the Jewish people are going to leave Galus. And I want to explain what it means when Rabbi Shimon says with this thing called the Zohar, with this thing called Pnimius HaTorah, with this thing called Kabbalah, with this thing, the Jewish people are going to leave the Galus. This is the derech out of Galus. There are three spheres of Jewish history, or of Jewish learning, if you will. There is the book about our past, the book about our history. And within that book of our history is everything, like the Ramban says, Ma'aseh Avos Simul Abanim. That which happened to the Avos happens to the children, that's the blueprint. That sefer that details where we come from and where we are going to, that's called Tanakh. Then there is another sefer that details the present tense. And that's called the Mishnah and the Gemara, the Talmud. That talks about the here and now. It talks about all of the things that we don't know what to do and how to do it, and then we glean from that which we have learned from our history, from our ancestors, from our Masorah, what to do in the present. That's called the Talmud. And then there's a sefer that talks about not just what happened, and not just what is happening, but what will happen, and that's called the Zohar. The Zohar is not a book about the past or the present, it's a book about the future. Which is why it's shrouded in mystery, because the future is mysterious. You don't know what the future is about. And what Rabbi Shimon did in that cave, in that pit of hell, under Roman occupation and persecution, when the world was burning, Rabbi Shimon said, I am going to create a blueprint from here to Yemos HaMashiach, which goes back not just to what the Torah says and what Chazal say. It's not just about Torah Shebechsav or about Torah Shebal Peh. It's like we spoke about last week. It's not the world of the Ksuba. And it's not the world of explaining the Ksuba. It's the world of why are you marrying this girl in the first place? Why are you standing under the chuppah? Why are you in love with her? Why do you want to be married? It's a very different question. It's more than the question of what are the obligations of marriage, and then what's the pshat in the obligations, and what's the drush in the obligations. It's why do you want to marry her? It's also the question, why does HaKadosh Baruch Hu want this? Why does he want us? Why does he want this world? Why does he want any of this? What's the point? What's the big point of everything? In the beginning of the Zohar HaKadosh, let's just see this for a moment. The Akdam of the Zohar, Dal Lamed Aleph. There's a famous and sometimes misquoted piece of the Zohar, and I want to just read it to you. The Zohar HaKadosh says as follows. Kala Hadar Kilim Mekadmin. The voice came as it was before. Va'amar alin timirim stimim. Pichi eina. and said, the elevated, those things that are hidden, that are impossible to reveal, in the mishmatan b'chol alma, those things that hover above all worlds, istagel b'chamu tatayin, demechin stimim, b'choreichan isaru. Come and see those people down below that are sleeping, stumming, that are closed off. Man minchon di chashocha mahapchel naira. Who amongst you can transform darkness into light? Time in mirir limsika, and switch and flip the flavors from bitterness to sweetness. Ad lo yesain hacha man minchon di machakon b'chol yom lahir nar b'shat the malka. If you cannot be one of those people that can change darkness into light and bitterness into sweetness, you don't belong here. And anybody that doesn't await a time where the bitterness is turned to sweetness and the darkness is turned to light should not be in this place. Says Rabbi Shimon, this world, the world of the future, belongs to people. Not that everything is going well. Not that everything is besimcha. Not that are living a life of life and liberty and pursuit of happiness. But people that are living a world of death and destruction and the pursuit of depression. And in that place, have the ability to make darkness into light and bitterness into sweetness. That's the Zohar Kodesh. And if you don't want that, says Rabbi Shimon, you don't belong here. There's a Maisa, I think it was the Abder Rav. I think so, I don't remember. He once davened, Ribbon Shalom, I want to see Gan Eden. They said that HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him, fell asleep and he had this dream. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu showed him this vast ocean. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, am I in Gan Eden? He said, no, this is not Gan Eden. Then he took him to like this magnificent forest with like enormous trees. And he says, wow, Ribbon Shalom, this is Gan Eden. He says, this is not Gan Eden. And he took him into this basement of like an old shul. You know the smell of like the basement of an old shul? You know what I'm talking about? We don't have them in Florida because we don't hold the basements. Right? Took him to like this basement of an old shul, and there were like a couple of like old Jews with long beards. Like a dusty room with like the light coming through, like the crack, the window that's at ground level. This dim lit room. And a couple of old Jews are sitting around a little rickety table, sitting on rickety benches with faded pages. And the Rebbe says, Ribbon Shalom, are these Yidden, are these Tzaddikim in Gan Eden? Ribbon Shalom said, no, Gan Eden is in them. That's where Gan Eden is. It's not a place, it's a person. It's a state of mind, it's a world of being. The world of Geula is that ability to change Chashuch l'Nahara, darkness to light, Emirul Masika, bitterness into sweetness. It's that look. It's that look. Somebody told me that they went to get a bracha from Chaim Kanievsky. Chaim and his Rebbetzin Chaim Rebbetzin was the daughter of Old Yashiv. We were married for like 70 years. She like walked into the room like just as like people were clearing out. And she looked at him and he looked at her, and like the amount of conversation that happened in that, like, it's like imagine how much life goes on between a husband and wife that have been in charge of Klal Yisrael, building a life and a marriage together for 70 years. It's Gan Eden when those two sets of eyes meet each other. It's not a place. It's a way of living, it's a way of looking, it's a way of being. So the Sasama says, Yaakov beretz Mitzrayim, that Yaakov found chiyus in Mitzrayim. When he wants to be megala the kates to his children, he wants to reveal redemption to his kids. And Kodesh Baruch Hu closes it up. The Zohar Kodesh says he didn't close it up. He revealed it to them in a closed way. He meant, look at me and you will see what Geula looks like. And Hashem says that I cannot show you how, but I can show you that. I can't show you how to get from where you are to where I am, but I can show you that it's possible. You need to know that it's possible. That no matter where you are and how you are and what you're doing and what your life is, that the Geula is there. That the Geula is in that world. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is there, like Rabbi Nachman says, we've learned this many times. A few years ago, I think you might be the only one that was there at that point. When we learned the Maimer in Rabbi Nassim L'Kudei Halachas Ayim Mekam Kevoidoi, where a Jew screams, Aye, that's the place that Hashem's presence is. Where a Jew says, Rebbeinu Shalom, where are you? That's exactly where Hashem is. In whatever situation, whatever you're going through, whatever is happening, to scream, Rebbeinu Shalom, where are you? Where a Jew says, Hashem, I'm looking for you, that's exactly where he is. The ayah is the Mekayim of Hashem's cover. That's the place of Hashem's honor. When you look for him. That's where HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found. What does this mean? Unlike Ba'amr, I'll share with you a very deep and very profound Torah of the Ishbitzer. Beis Yaakov the Ishbitzer writes, so this is at the end of Beis Yaakov HaKolel, Parashat B'chukosai, which is the 33rd parasha in the Torah. And in it, there are 33 psukim of bracha and 33 psukim of klala. Beis Yaakov explains what the chashivas is of 33, which is the 33rd midah, which is tonight Hoitche B'Hod. What does it mean, Hoitche B'Hod? We'll say a little bit inside, a little bit outside. He says, the deep desire of every Jew is to live a meaningful life. That's what you want, right? You want all the things that you do to be meaningful. There's a problem, though. The problem is that we are exceptionally limited. Far more limited than we ever like to acknowledge. And he gives the example. He says as follows. When a person does something with calculations, he gives money to the pushka, puts money in the tzedakah box. And he knows that the person that's distributing tzedakah is an honest fellow. And in that, he is making a choice. And he's acting with intelligence. And he's acting with das, with awareness, with understanding. He's making an informed decision, as is appropriate to do. Did his homework, did his research. He believes that this is an appropriate tzedakah to give to. And he believes that the Gabbai is going to give out the money honestly. But who does the Gabbai end up giving to? You can't know, you can't be aware, and you're not supposed to know who the Gabbai gives it to. You trust him, you trust that he's going to make a good choice. Let's say that he does. You did your homework, you gave tzedakah. The Gabbai did his homework and he gives it to an ani. That is appropriate. So how do you make sure that this all works out? He says, so you daven that Hashem should help me, that the money that I give should be used for good things, should go to a good person. That his money should go to the right person. But for the ani then to take that money and then go do something positive in the world with it, how far do you daven? How far can you daven? What? That the money that I give goes to the right person, who's going to give it to the right person, who's going to do a mitzvah. How far? I worked hard, I made money, and now I want to give that to somebody. I want to know that all the things that I do in the world are good. How do you know that eventually the money doesn't end up, paying Rahman al-Islam for like some terrorist in Iran? You don't know. The guy's going to end up using it to fuel his crack addiction. You don't know. You want to know that it's going to work out well, but you don't know. He says, but you deeply want, you have to scream internally, Ribbon Shalom, I just want to make sure that the things that I do are good. And if a person does as much as they can, does their research, works hard, earns money honestly, gives money to tzedakah honestly, does the research to find the right person, davens that person uses it for the right things, as Hashem Yisbarach Yigmar Ba'adai Sheyed Allah V'Yigmar L'Tov, then HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, I'll take it from here. There is a limit to how far your control over your actions go. We don't have the ability to control every outcome. You have no idea. And this is why the whole of Parashat B'chukosa is called Chukim. It's things that are hidden from you. And B'chukosa is the word of Hod Shebahod. There's 33 brachas and 33 psukim of teichacha, of rebuke. And 33 psukim in the world of erchin, which is not for now. And all of this is because, and this Arizal explains, the light of Bina that descends to a person and descends into the world is channeled through Chesed and Gevurah and Tiferes and Netzach and Hod. Once it gets to Hod Shebahod, you're not in control anymore. At that point in time, we realize our limitation. I'm moida. I admit, I acknowledge, Shebahod, that even my capacity to admit and acknowledge is adkan. I can't do more. Which means that the deepest depth of the world of Hod Shebahod, of Lag BaOmer, is realizing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu carves out a space. Carves out a space for each and every Jew to do things in the world. But it's, programmers would say, is sandboxed. You don't have the ability to do more. You have the area that you can control. You have the area that you can influence. You have the area that you can do positive things. Shkoyach. You can't know that if I try to take this chair, that one's going to fall. You don't know. You can try, but you don't know. Meaning, at the end of the day, to be able to say, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has given me this sphere of influence. This and no more. And then to say, and that is what Hashem wants from me. And in that sphere, in that world, in that realm, I will make darkness into light and I will make bitterness into sweetness. In the area that I can control. And what happens after that, I don't know. And I don't need to know. It's beyond my capacity to do, and it's beyond my capacity to understand. That space, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. How it comes out in my yesodus, in my actions, where they go, and whether or not this builds a world of malchus, I don't know. It's not in my control. It's not in my wheelhouse. It's not in my capacity. It's not in my capability. I cannot know more than what I know. There's a Ramban. It's a frightening Ramban. Ramban asks the question, it's a little bit mature. Ramban asks the question why it is that after a husband and wife are together with the intention of making a baby, there's still tumah. Still tumah. Husband walks out of that interaction with tumah's carry. Why is there tumah there? It's the greatest mitzvah in the world. The first mitzvah that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave to Adam and Chava is Pru Revu Miros Haaretz. Why does that make you tummy?
Isn't that just from Ezra?
No. Going to the mikveh is takanas Ezra to get rid of it. The tumah is a tumah deraisa. It's possible for in Chumash.
Every time we do what?
Every time. Every time there's tumah. Every time. So Shala, what to do about it? Okay. There's tumah. Why is there tumah? Says the Ramban. Because in that moment, the person doesn't know. Did it work or did it not? You never know. And the suffix that happens in your head, the doubt, is the shorish of all tumah. You don't know, did I do something or was this a waste? Not an Isser. But that doubt of, will this make something real? Did I achieve anything? It's like you invest in a stock. And then you go, I don't know. I don't know what happens now. Anything could happen. Go up, go down. Go down and then go up. Go up and then go down. Anybody that's bought Bitcoin ever, this is that whole world. Right? You just zoom in and out. You say, I don't know. What do? You don't know. And that suffix. That suffix is called tumah. Because you do your research, you do whatever you can, and then you say, Rebbeinu Shalom, what do you want from my life? And in that suffix, there is tumah. And Rabbi Shimon came into this world and said, even if it goes down, and even if you're not matzliach, and if everything falls apart, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is still running the show. That you see the sweetness in the bitterness and the light that's in the darkness. Can you see it? Can you see it? If you can see it, then you belong in this world. And if not, there's still work to do in order to have Geula. It means to look at a world falling apart and say, It's not falling apart, it's opening up. To look at a world that is completely dark and to say, no, this isn't dark. This is light. Says the Chasam Sofer, you know what Lag BaOmer is? Lag BaOmer is 2/3 the way through Sfira Soimer. 2/3 the way through the night is the darkest part of the night. And it's just before it begins to get light. From here it gets light. That's why Sfira Soimer is broken up. Kamanim explained to Leiv and Tov. Leiv Tov. 32 days and then 17 days. 32 days to build up your Leiv. To work on your emotions. To work on Chesed and Gvura and Tiferes and Netzach and Hide. And then 17 days to see that it's all Tov. That the world is Tov. That you are Tov. That Hashem is Tov. And to march from here to a world of light. The Chassidim explain, you know why you light a bonfire like BaOmer? It's not like a big outside candle for Rabbi Shimon. It's not. It's because of the darkest part of the night, you light the biggest fire. A big fire. To say, even though there is no fuel, and even though there is no light, we're going to make one. And if you can do that, that's called Geula. That's called Geula where you are. That's called Gan Eden where you are. That's called Mashiach where you are. And Rabbi Shimon is miyased that foundational principle of all Pnimiyas HaTorah, which is Anon B'Chavivus Etali Milsa. The only way to do it is this, is to have chevra. People getting together and caring about each other, because somehow or another when two Jews get together, that's called Geula. I think it's nice that they say by Rebbe Baruch HaMeshbosh that he once asked, I think he said that he asked the Maggid, he was asked in the name of the Baal Shem Tov. He says, how come when you put two Yuds together, that makes Hashem's name? Two Yuds together makes Hashem's name. Or two Yuds, one on top of the other, that's called the Sof Pasuk. Right? You have the... So they explained to him, they said, yeah, because if you put two Jews next to each other, that's called HaKadosh Baruch Hu's presence is there. But one Jew wants to climb on top of another one, that's called the end of a pasuk. So when Jews get together, when people sit next to each other, when Chevra get together, that's HaKadosh Baruch Hu's there. And Rabbi Akiva had 24,000 Talmidim, which means 12,000 pairs, the Gemara says. And he was the leader of a movement. And his entire world collapsed. And Rabbi Shimon was born out of the 5 Talmidim that Rabbi Akiva went to find when his entire life's work was over. We talk about making a world of darkness into light, of bitterness into sweet. Rabbi Akiva goes and says, I'm going to start again with 5 little Talmidalach. I'm going to rebuild Torah. And that is all of Torah Sheba'al Peh. Gemara says that all of Torah Sheba'al Peh that we have today, all of the Mishnayos, and all of the Sifra, and all of the Sifri, all of the Midrash HaHalacha and Midrash HaGalat, all of it came from the base Medrash of Rabbi Akiva and the 5 Talmidim that he raised after the world was destroyed. And Rabbi Shimon says, watch what I do, he says. Learn my midos, because what I do, he says, is truma mi trumas Rabbi Akiva. It's the truma of Rabbi Akiva. It's the distillation of the distillation, the most elevated of the most sanctified, the greatest thing that Rabbi Akiva taught, which is how to find sweetness in a world that is bitter, and how to find light in a world that is dark. The Sfas Emes writes in this in two places, I think. It's not in the regular Sfas Emes, it's in the Likudim of the Sfas Emes, what he wrote before he became Rabbi, which is like a shtiklach on the Zohar Kaddish. Nobody knew that the Sfas Emes was like a Gaon and a Talmud Chacham until after he died. I mean, the Hasidim knew, but the rest of the world didn't. He also wasn't called the Sfas Emes. They called him that after he died, because they named the Sefer Sfas Emes. He didn't know that he was called the Sfas Emes. His mother didn't call him Sfas Emes. It would have been strange. Sfas Emes. Right? It says in two places in Bereshis, in the Likutim. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu created this great light at the beginning of creation. And then he hid it away. It was Ganos L'Tzadikim L'Asilava. It was hidden for the Tzadikim for the future. Where did Hashem hide this great light? Where did Hashem hide the great light of creation? So everybody says, no, where did he hide it? The menorah, in the Torah. Ner mitzvah Torah or. No, says the Sfas Emes. You know where Hashem hid the greatest light in the world? In the darkness. That's where it is. That's where it is. When the Satmar Rebbe left Eretz Yisrael, he went to America. The Chassidim that were still there said, where should we bring our kvitlach to? Where should we bring our brachas? Who's going to give us a bracha? And he said, find a Jew that has numbers on their arm that puts tefillin on top. That Jew's brachas is greater than any Rebbe. Like the greatest picture that the War of Independence, 1948, there's a picture of a young man, barely looks like a skeleton. He's got numbers on his arm and he's holding a rifle behind a rock. That's called finding the sweetness in the bitter, the darkness, turning that into light. It's sitting in a cave for 13 years, coming out with a manuscript screaming, with this we will leave the Galus. It's knowing that it's never over. There's never ever an end to the Jewish people. There's never an end to Torah. There's never an end to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Like Rabbi Shimon teaches us about Yisrael Chadhu, that the Jewish people and Hashem and the Torah are all one. Because Hashem is Hashem. And like the Rambam says, he encoded his wisdom into the Torah. And Hashem and his wisdom are one. And you know what the Torah is? What's the Torah? It tells a story. What story? Our story. Which means that the wisdom of Hashem, which is Hashem himself, is manifest in the story of us. When two Jews sit together, that's called Shem Hashem. And in that gap in between is the infinity of the light of God. And somehow or another, our generation has been zocher to see a little piece of this. Somehow or another. You turn on the news and you see another anti-Semite bashing Israel, and you realize how wonderful it is that Israel exists for them to bash. Yet, this is the beginning. This is the beginning. It's not the beginning of the end. It's the end of the beginning. The next stage of Jewish history, what happens after this? What happens after the Lag BaOmer of the Jewish people? And I don't know if you know this, by the way. You know his yard side is Lag BaOmer? Not Rabbi Shimon. 1945, Lag BaOmer is the day that Hitler killed himself. Higyonis Divrei Chachamim, Talmud of Shimla, writes about this. That was the end of the night. The beginning of the morning starts after Lag BaOmer. So the Jewish people realizes that the end is never the end. That darkness is never darkness. That light is yet to grow brighter and greater and more and more. That the best is yet to come forever. From here we only go onwards and upwards. It might be that the stock fluctuates, but the trend is up. And I'll give you a business idea. Polymarket idea. Find somebody that's long-term betting against the Jewish people. And bet against them. I promise you'll win. It's not my promise, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's Rabbi Shimon. Ki lo yishachach mipei zara. The Torah will never be forgotten from the Jewish people. Ki lo yishachach. The Jewish people is forever. Torah is forever. Klal Yisrael is forever. Kadosh Baruch Hu is forever. And that's what Rabbi Shimon discovered. And that's what Rabbi Shimon proclaimed. And that's what Rabbi Shimon wrote. You want to know why Jews are celebrating today? Because we all know it's true. We all see how that is the emes. Like the Zemer says, in the Mara, there it was revealed Hoid Chavad Arecha. The Hoid and the Hadar. Beauty, the glory, the greatness of Rabbi Shimon came from there. Greater than the revelation of Sinai, of the Aseres HaDibros, was the revelation of the Yud Gimel Midas HaRachamim that happened B'Nikras Atzur, in the cleft in the rock. In the same way that each and every one of us knows that the relationship between husband and wife is not greatest at the wedding. It's greatest after you have your first real fight and then make up. And then you realize, why did we do this in the first place? That the relationship is beyond all fights. It's beyond all problems. It's beyond all tsaras. It's beyond all of that. That there's light in that darkness, that there is sweetness in that bitterness. That b'chavivus et hali milsa. Somehow or another you find closeness and friendship. It's not for nothing that every single one of the hostages that Baruch Hashem survived. Kimat every single one of them came out talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu and about tshuva and about their love for Hashem and the Jewish people. These chevra that were all being, whatever it was, on Yom Tov Shabbos, Simchas Torah. That chevra came out of their ma'ara, of their cave, and turned darkness into light and bitterness into sweetness. If that is not Heichal Shel Mashiach in our generation, I don't know what is. If that's not the world of Geula. Mi ka'amcha Yisrael. Nobody else in the world. You can imagine that. Came out without hatred and without blame, without resentment. So the deep love for Hashem and the Jewish people. That's Nikra Satsur. Yud Gimel Midas Harachamim. It's Eichol Shel Mashiach. That's V'chi Yaakov Eretz Mitzrayim. That's tefillin on top of your numbers. That's Hoid Shebahid, my dear friends. It's the world of Rabbi Shimon. It's the world of Geula. It's the Gan Eden that's inside of the Tzaddikim. It's that place where you realize I can do only what Hashem wants me to do. And after that, He's in charge of the world. And if I can poke my head out of my own bubble for a second and realize that Hashem is running everything. Take ownership and responsibility for what I can do. And then know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is running this ship well beyond anything that I could ever dream of, maybe even thinking of doing. Then the world outside of my direct influence is not dark. It's the world of light. Like the Baal Shem HaKadosh says, when Hashem promised Avraham Avinu, your children will be like the stars in the sky. Said the Baal Shem HaKadosh, imagine that there's a blanket that's thrown over the world, and behind it is the greatest light ever that nobody can see. Comes along a yid, pokes a little hole, and all of a sudden there's light streaming through. So that's your children will be like the stars in the sky. We are the portal through which the great light shines into this world. In the darkness of the night sky, we're poking little holes and letting the light stream through. And Ashrenu Matov Chalkenu Manoim Garalenu, that we were zeicha to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, who came to this world and said, I'll give you a little stick. Go make a hole. Go poke through. Go turn the darkness into light. Go find the light in the darkest place. Here's the stick. L'chaim tov v'shalom. Shemen zasayin mei chaverecha